Good evening, Jamie Finn here from On the Ball Team Building. We are on episode 5 of An Inside View. Tonight we have former Munster player Jonny Holland. He's coming on to speak about his career and about being forced to retire at such a young age and the impact that had on him and what he's up to at the moment. He's currently performance nutritionist with Cork GAA, both hurling and football teams, and he is also an assistant coach with Cork Con. It should be a very, very interesting story, so we are looking forward to have him on and have a good chat. He should be on now. Johnny, how are you?
Good now, how are you?
Good. I was getting worried there. I was like, geez, are you going to connect?
No, I was listening to it. I was giving you a chance.
Perfect. How are you keeping?
Good now. I hope my signal will work for you here. But yeah, keeping all right now. Trying to keep busy during this lockdown or whatever people call it these days. But yeah, all
And
good.
how are you keeping busy? I know you a lot of training you do yourself is kind of on your own anyway, but how do you find that transition from, we say, the gym to, I suppose, I know you have your makeshift gym now
Yeah,
at your own house.
yeah. Like I suppose I've been lucky enough, and I know people have a lot less equipment than what I have now. And at the start, I had a couple of bands, and I had one kettlebell, one dumbbell, and even getting the kettlebell and dumbbell, I was like, I can do loads with this. With I suppose I did a personal training diploma, and that should have helped me out a small bit. But luckily, I suppose I'm involved in some clubs, and I've picked up a barbell, and I've picked up some plates from the place I work in as well. So I was luckier than most. I have a bike outside, so like a stationary bike. So I've plenty to keep me busy. But I got running for a while, which I don't do, and I just try to like use what I have, and like we have too much equipment in the gym anyway, and you kind of jump from piece to piece. So it's we've had to probably improve our skills a small bit, and realize that you actually can get, it's not all but just like lifting weight. You can use different kind of ways of training to get the job done as well. Like, so many ways to skin a cat and all that. So it's been kind of, I think before I got the barbell, I was starting to get sick of a kettlebell and one dumbbell as well. So I can kind of understand when people are, kind of getting demotivated and stuff like that. It does happen. The barbell was like, kind of like a Christmas present to me. Like I could do stuff. So it's sad enough, isn't it? But I enjoy training. So that was important to me, to be fair.
That's good. And you're involved with the Cork senior footballers and hurlers. How are you, keeping in contact with them at the moment, and how difficult it's obviously a challenge to, we say, to keep motivated, especially when you're not meeting them face to face.
Yeah, I suppose it's challenging, but luckily, like it's not up to me to keep them motivated, and you're dealing with highly motivated guys anyway. Like I've done a bit of exercise on video with Owen Cadigan, like, which was, I didn't before that. I was like, we had the same bike at home, and I train on my own all the time, but people ask me to do sessions and stuff, and I was like, okay, I'll do it at different times, but like I like training on my own, and I was happy enough outside in the shed, but like actually it kind of gave me something training with Owen as well, which was great, like. And that was obviously keeping him motivated, but it got me to do a bit more as well and compete with a real athlete these days. So it was great. There's other fellas that are on to me the whole time, and you don't need to motivate them. But obviously, we're dealing with each other from a distance and trying to. I suppose, luckily, I've dealt with some people online anyway in my capacity of coaching. Like, I've my own business is both on and offline, which is great. I meet people face to face, and I like that. But having to deal with people online at different times has helped me. I've got some of the guys using my fitness plan, and I can see their diary on my own phone, which isn't. I'm not looking at it the whole time, but at least without sending screenshots and trying to explain yourself all the time, I can see what they're up to if they want me to, and then other people I've just been keeping in touch with, and I haven't been able to keep in touch with everyone. The circumstances have changed, obviously, and not everyone has the same motivation and all that, and some people are looking for more support. Other people are flat out because they know what they're doing, and you don't need as much support, but you're always there for them to contact you as well. So it is a funny one, but I think having dealt with people online before, it sets you up. Now other people are much better than I am online. They've got a whole load of systems and all that kind of stuff. It's very basic with me, but it's just keeping in touch with people more than anything, and being there as a bit of support when they need it as well.
And leading on to that, I suppose, just before we go into things in more detail, just kind of off topic now, do you reckon we will get to the stage of games being played and you'll be able to meet some of the players, albeit it might be in groups of four, or what do you think, with under the current circumstances?
Yeah, like, I don't know. Well, I'm not all over it or anything, but like the way the phase return to play or return to real life has kind of gone, I don't see why you can't be training in smaller groups in a couple of weeks' time, and they are looking to get the game back, so I thought there'd be better plans in place to actually get the game back, to be fair, whether the crowds are there or not. Obviously people want to go to games, but would you have a game on TV rather than have no game at all? Of course you would. So I'm not sure what the thinking is there. Obviously, like, this is a big thing, and I'm all for exercising caution and trying to get rid of the thing before it you get second and third waves and all of it. But you see other countries are dealing with it really well, and I think we've dealt with it really well compared to some of the things that we deal with. It doesn't go according to plan. So I think we've done really well, and people have been pretty good for the most part. But I'd love to be back to games at some stage this year. Obviously, for me, it's work and enjoyment, so from both ends, I'd love to get back to it. But from the players' point of view, I was speaking to a good few of them now today, and it is disheartening, and it's very hard to keep motivated in May for a championship that definitely won't happen until October at the earliest. They might play club and all that, but that's not what they're training for. Obviously, that's where the love starts, but they're training for Croke Park, so yeah. It is very hard to have already gone through nearly 2 months of it, and then having to go through another couple of months before they even get to see each other. So I suppose they keep in touch and stuff, and it keeps some bit of a fire lighting, but it is very difficult. And I always say to them, like, I'm outside training in the shade or I'm running on a road, and I can just give up on the spot if I want to. Not that I do most of the time, but like, you can just kind of think, I'm not up for it today, but they can't, because someone else is training somewhere, and that's in the back of their minds, and it's painful when you know that, and if you give up, it's worse than going through the pain of the actual training session. So it's a difficult situation to be in. I've never been in it as an athlete, so trying to deal with it as best we can in a group as much as we can. That's obviously all like online at the moment, but trying to keep people together as much as possible is key.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging times ahead, and hopefully we will get players back on the field sooner rather than later. I suppose, look, going back to the early days, again, I'm not saying you're old, but I suppose you started off with Sunday Wells, is that right? Sunday Wells?
Yeah.
And then Cork Con, and I suppose that's where things kind of started to progress for you, was it?
Yeah, I suppose I played underage club rugby in a couple of different places, but Sunday as well was kind of where we settled. I'm a triplet, and my brother and myself, my sister didn't play with Sunday as well, but the two of us went over there. We spent 8 years there, and I moved on to college at a time where obviously I was going to college, and Munster under 18 stuff had started, and I think under 19s, 18s, and I went over to college, and it was like a little academy over there, because we trained. You had two options: to go to the gym on a Monday and a Wednesday in the morning or the evening. And I took that quite seriously, because I was still a bit young. I was young going to school. I was barely 4 and I was kicked out the door being a triplet. And so I'm going to college, and I still had at the time the academies weren't as young. I think they're definitely after kind of filtering it down a bit younger. But I spent a decent year in college, kind of doing a bit of both, where I was able to enjoy myself for a change, because I don't do it enough. And then the training was still serious enough. I took it seriously, and into the sub academy after that. But it wasn't really. It was good there, and I got to take the reins in college as a young 10, and kind of manage a team for the first time, the way the schools players might have done it. But going over to Cork Con, it stepped up a notch, and you knew you were. I wouldn't say at a better club or anything, but you knew you were in a place where people took the thing seriously, and there was a real pathway to get to where you wanted to go as well.
And did you? I read somewhere that you kind of found it challenging at the start with maybe your size and playing that role. How did you adopt to that going forward? Or
it was something that was on my mind the whole time. I wasn't a Shane Williams or anything, but I didn't have the stability either. But I suppose that's why I got so into my nutrition. Like, it was just something that I had to get bigger and I had to get more robust. And I suppose I didn't get that robust in the end, but like, I definitely became a bigger person and I put a lot of effort into it. So I did as much as I could. But some people aren't genetically as good as others, and then you have to hone in on other things. Like, I think I would have been a decent decision maker. I would have gotten out of it, trouble a bit better than others. Like, I'd worm my way away from it because you don't want to get caught, because if you get caught, you're dead. So
You're there.
I got better at escaping things. So maybe my footwork was decent, my speed was all right, that kind of thing. Because if they weren't, I was going to be under pressure playing rugby with bigger guys. Like, So yeah, definitely size was something on my mind. But I enjoyed the challenge of taking down a bigger guy, and people don't expect it, and you might put in a deep. Some fellas will say I never made a good hit in my life, but I definitely think I had a couple where people aren't expecting it, and you might put in a hit that's bigger than your size, and that it's a nice little challenge for you.
Perfect. And you, I suppose things didn't start to stepping up a few notches in 2011, and then that's where you kind of broke onto the Munster A's, and then you eventually got the development contract in 14. I suppose that was a big, you're obviously really happy with that, because I suppose it showed that you're progressing.
Yeah, and I probably had more of a chip on my shoulder than some guys, because I was always the club player in a kind of a team dominated with schools players, and I went through the academy, and not to be like poor me or anything. There's plenty of club players come through, but it was always the thing. You're reminded of it all the time. Like, our schools players are probably just developed a bit more than you, but mentally, I think that stood to me because I always had someone to beat, and I always had something to beat. But the development contract was really me getting away from that, because going through the sub academy, like most fellas, they can skip it, or they spend 1 year there, or you can spend 2 years there. Of course, I spent 2 years there, and the lads that I kind of went in my under 20 side, Niall Scannell, Keane Bohan, these guys went a year ahead of me. Like, even though we were training, it didn't change what we were doing, but like they were a year ahead of me, and I just didn't like that. So then they kind of got their development contracts a year ahead of me. I was training with them again because I got brought up to the senior kind of setup, but I was kept on an academy contract technically, so that annoyed me. So when I got the development contract, I could say I was a senior player, but again, getting the full senior contract was another kind of step in that direction as well. So I always wanted the next one, and I always wanted the next one, because it just kind of left that kind of doubt behind where you're a club player versus schools players, and it doesn't go through to the senior side, to be fair, but it just kind of, I felt it. There was a year kind of a lag because of it, in a sense, and it probably pissed me off a small bit.
Perfect. And then you eventually, you would say you got there was a year lag, but then you got the contract in 15, and again, I suppose, did you get a sense that, look, I've made it now, not exactly made it, but that's one, we say, goal, ticked off, and then things start to kind of moving up another level in 16. You looking at your record in 16, you seem to be flying. Things were going very, very well.
Yeah, they were. Like, I was injured without knowing it, really, like, in the back of that. But 2014, it probably coincides with college in 2013, and then I got my development contract. I didn't have a college kind of degree to distract me, kind of. So I was really just going all in on my rugby, like, and that's what I was waiting for the last probably year and a half to 2 years of my college course. Was just like, I wasn't throwing it out. I mean, I would have been diligent at school and stuff, but I just wanted to get it done as best I could while balancing rugby, to get out the other side and play rugby, without having any distractions. And so I enjoyed that, but I probably got too far into it. Like, I mean, I didn't switch off at all. But yeah, I probably followed on. I got injured then, but which kind of took the next 2 years of my career until I got back in 16. And yeah, I strung a few performances together, I suppose, in a time where we were struggling. But I thought that I'd kick on, I'd have a decent summer. I started that season, like, I literally played on the 29th of December in 2015, and then I was kind of playing catch up. I didn't have a pre-season. I didn't feel fit. I didn't feel like I was really attacking the games. I was surviving and trying to put my best foot forward. So I thought, get a bit of recovery, get my hamstring to be not sore anymore, and get a good pre-season under my belt after a rest, and go and take the next contract, is what I was kind of thinking. Go cement that jersey and take the next contract. But I didn't even get through the preseason. I could get through a couple of weeks of preseason, and the game was over. So very different to how my mind wanted to play out. But I suppose my body was telling me things. There were creaks there, right? Like,
Just for people that won't be exactly aware, I suppose, did it was forced upon you to make that decision at 25, or was it like you had no choice really, or
Didn't have a choice. Like, I mean, I was probably playing for 18 months without my rehab being attached. My hamstring being attached through my rehab. Um, so I didn't really know that until I went and investigated a small bit more and looked into it. But it was a kind of a small hamstring strain tightness in that pre-season that made us look into it a bit more, because I had to do a fitness test to get back to training. It was actually, he went to, I think I threw an intercept or something in training, and Keith got it and went for a run. And obviously I was competing directly with Keith. I was like, no, he's not getting a try anyway. So I went to take off after him and just got a tightness. And it was only a 1 week thing. I don't even know if I had a strain, but I, having to do a return to play kind of sprint testing and all that kind of stuff, I just got a massive moment of frustration. The physios knew what was going on with me, and I knew what was going on, but we just never really said things out loud. And I was telling him my hamstring is fine, would you leave me alone with that small strain? But then it was kind of like, at one stage I went, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room at all? Like, are we going to talk about the upper hamstring? Or and they were like, if you want to talk about it. I was like, obviously I want to fix this thing. Like, also we had to get opinions on it. I got another scan and things just unraveled. And it was I went for an opinion with Aina Falvey. He was saying time was up. Like, I wasn't going to be good enough to play long term. I was just going to keep me sore, basically. I couldn't get through the training load, never mind get back to a pitch. I mean, the end of 2016 season, I nearly pulled out of the Edinburgh game, second last game, because I couldn't train. I was really sore during training. I spent about a half an hour warming up, and the pain just kind of subsided a small bit for me to get through training. And I played and I enjoyed the game. And then I tried not to train in the Scarlets week for the last game on a Tuesday, because I was too sore. The physio was telling Axel I couldn't train, but again, couldn't train either. So one of us had to train. So I was a lamb to the slaughter. And, couldn't train Thursday, couldn't kick Thursday or Friday. I had to go up and play on Saturday, and played brutally in my last game. But they didn't.
Yeah.
That was 4 years ago.
Jeez.
So that was my last game. I didn't think it was going to be, but it was brutal. I actually soloed the ball in my 22 because I didn't want to make a decision. I tried to kick it, and Francis Saidi wanted it, and I soloed it, and then ended up being tackled and knocked it on. I had a nightmare. But it was kind of like, I went for a second opinion in London, and same thing. Like, he kind of said, I don't know what you're doing playing on it anyway. There's very little going on in there in terms of attachments and all the rest of it. And he kind of said, look, you can try to manage the load, but it's not going to go any better than this, so I suppose it wasn't that I was on crutches in a wheelchair, couldn't play, but it was like, you can do one session every 4, like, how are you going to play, and it's still sore and sore. So it wasn't really any good, to be fair.
And we say post, that those few weeks post retirement, how did you adapt to that, or did it take a year or two to eventually, I wouldn't say accept it, but kind of to come to some understanding that this is it?
I went to I'm just seeing one or two hamstring crew checking in there. Sean Powder, big fan. I went to a dinner with some of the older crew. They had a 10-year reunion, and there was a kind of fundraising dinner in London that they do all the time. And I was asked to go over to it. It was kind of like networking, get your name out there kind of thing, after retirement and all that. And I remember, Morgan said to me, it'll be 9 months before you realise you're retired. And I was like, I'm very realistic about this. Like, I know what's going on. And I made the decision. The decision is final, and I'm all right about it. Like, but he was right. At 9 months, I kind of went, fucking, I'm done here, And it was, I felt like I dealt with it really well, and people would have said to me, you're dealing with it really well. But I would have had my moments where I just freaked out. Chloe was at the end of it, and my parents were at the end of it, and that's the way I operate anyway. I'd fuck things up, and then I give out, and then it's out of my system. But to be fair, it soaked it up for me and just know that I was going through a bit. But I probably didn't tell people I was going through anything frustrating either, So it would kind of come out of thin air. And then Chloe would say to me, like, why didn't you explain yourself to me? Like, I would have understood a bit better. And I'd go off on one. I didn't want to explain. I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
And I was like, I kept myself busy. I was studying. I kept a routine. I'm kind of about my routine. So like I was dealing with it all right. But at the end of the day, like, your life has changed drastically in a day. So it was I was nervous with it. But I don't want that to come across in the way that I was struggling or anything. I thought I did well, but I was probably struggling more than I admitted. Like that I believed I was struggling. But it was more the identity of it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was going to do. And that was tough to wake up in the morning and go, I don't know what my next step is, and trying to figure out your next step. Suddenly, it was difficult, even with a degree and doing a postgrad at the time. You still don't know where the next step is, like, you know. So that's the hardest part. And I suppose dealing with having to tell my family and upsetting their social lives and the weekend, going look forward to and all that. They're well able to socialise outside of that. Don't worry. But I think the dealing with the people closest to me and the identity part were definitely the toughest.
And I suppose you got the role with Cork Con, and then you got in with the Cork footballers and hurlers. Did that kind of, we say, help you, change focus to, look, that was the past, that happened, it happened, and you could look forward now, and you had probably more concrete goals there?
Yeah, I think Cork On definitely helped me a lot through my retirement. Like, I mean, I didn't really care to coach. I didn't want to be coaching. But when I retired, I was like, Jesus, I spent 4 years in the academy anyway. Why not go back in there and try and do something or help someone out somewhere? And I mean, people were asking me to do things, and I became a bit of a yes man. Like, I was a bit of a yes man anyway, maybe. But I would have tried to help people as much as possible. And if someone asked me to do a session, I would have just done a session. Or if someone asked me to help them with something, I would have tried to help them. And I didn't want to turn down anything. Like, I know it can be a waste of time at times, but at the time I didn't have a choice. I just felt like, submerge yourself in whatever's going on, and whatever comes out of something will come out of it. And who knows, like, if someone was a waste of a conversation, they might know someone who wasn't a waste of a conversation. So that's the way I kind of dealt with it, and that's the way Cork On kind of, it dragged me in a small bit, do a bit of work with the 20s and help out. And then when I get on board fully, and I tried to back out of it, and Jerry Holland knew how to rope me back in, even though I was doing it. And it was one of the best things I've done, because it's helped me in my capacity as a nutritional coach. Because I think coaching is coaching to a certain degree, like, but dealing with people and learning to have empathy after being a professional athlete is definitely a tough thing to do, because you don't understand people, you just don't understand why they're not doing it the way you're telling them to do it, like, and all that kind of stuff. But having, like, I mean, they drew me in, and I'm going into year 5, I think. Is it 4? So I'm going into my 4th senior year, and I did a bit with the 20s, like, so it's I'm further down the coaching path than what I thought I would have been. But then the Cork thing came from a different kind of avenue and angle. I was doing my nutrition coaching, and I did proactively go and look for the football job, because I thought they didn't have anyone with them, definitely no one full time. So I kind of went looking for that, and I ended up doing a little bit of work with the 20s. And then the following year, something opened up, and I was kind of not the obvious choice, but that was a kind of natural progression. So that was good. And then I got my foot in the door on the other side with the hurlers as well. So it kind of all happened at once. So I ended up having 3 teams all of a sudden, and very little time. But it was great to kind of be immersed in that and see 3 different dressing rooms. Definitely not 2 sports that I didn't play, but one I didn't play at all, really. And football I would have played a good bit of, but not at that level, So it was great to see different dynamics, different cultures, how different managers, coaches and coaching teams work things. So it really is kind of like, I probably started late in terms of a career, but you get to see so much in such a short space of time that it helps to accelerate things a bit as well,
And how on that point, we say with the GAA, we say with football and hurling, how did you find going into the dressing room and immersing yourself in that, say, culture? And especially when those players, would have known you from being a rugby guy as such, and you're very young, I suppose, when you were going into those 2 dressing rooms. How did you build that trust? And
I suppose, like, I was coaching over in Cork with guys who were the same age as me as well, and I would have played with a lot of them, some of them older than me. So I was kind of coming to terms with that side of it and how to deal with that. And then going into the GAA dressing rooms, I knew some of those guys as well. I would have played with or against some of them, and I would have known others, and I would have crossed paths with some fellas, So, and there was a good bars contingent as well over with the footballers, and I'm a bars man, obviously, at heart. So that kind of helped as well, to be fair. But I think the trust comes from just being an honest person. You can't force the trust, and you can't force people to like you. You can't force people to get on with you. But if you can be honest, and I suppose my big thing is just being on the player side. I don't go out there to be on the manager side and to to play around with things. And they don't ask me to be either, but like I think it's a player's first approach for me, and that's just, I think that helps with getting their trust and getting them on board. But I didn't bring any rugby principles over to the GAA either. I didn't say this is how we did it, so this is how we're going to do it, you know. And I think because I played at a professional sport, and unfortunately GAA isn't professional, I think it's a lot more than amateur personally, but it technically isn't professional. So they would have had a lot of interest in what I would have done and what Munster would have done, and even players maybe not any interest in me, but interest in fellas that I would have been around in a dressing room, what this fella's like and what that fella's like, and how do they manage their routine. And you know, I was doing more than just nutrition, but I was happy enough to chat about it and help players in whatever capacity I can help players. You know, so that's probably how I built some bit of trust, if I have some.
Very good. No, that's very interesting how you brought a different perspective to the dress rooms. And I suppose just on that point, just for people that wouldn't know, what's the difference between, we say, a performance nutritionist and just, we say, a normal nutritionist? I suppose performance is more tailored towards obviously sports people, is it?
Yeah, big time. I mean, you can get bogged down a little bit as well. I mean, nutritionist isn't the protected kind of title, so you can be a nutritionist for anything basically. Like, but performance nutritionist kind of separates that a small bit in terms of dealing with sport and the performance of sport, like kind of fueling and energy and recovery and all that kind of side to it. Whereas nutritionists in general probably very much body composition and that kind of direction. Whereas performance, you're trying to just, maybe it's just a title, but it's I think it is more geared towards sports and that side of it, yeah.
And we say, what would be a regular, I wouldn't say a regular routine week, like, but we say a day or two leading up to a match, what would you be advising your players to be eating and to be drinking?
Yeah, you definitely go back to like a kind of a simple carb, protein, hydration approach. Carbs are going to be the fuel that you will use at a high intensity, so that's what you're trying to saturate your muscle with, make sure you're topped up as much as possible. So your last session before a game is normally about 2 days beforehand or something close enough to that. But that's where you'd start your kind of fueling for the match. Obviously, training stops at that stage, but like with Cork Con, we train on a Thursday, we play on a Saturday afternoon, so it's 36 to 48 hours thereabouts. And after your last session, you need to refuel what you've used and then go and fuel up the next bit for the day after. So decent carb protein meal without disrupting your sleep with too much hydration on the evening after your training session. Then you've got your kind of game day -1 or your day before the match, where you do it's a normal routine. You don't want to go to foods that you don't normally eat, but you do want to add carbohydrates in there, like a bit of breakfast, lunch and dinner, maybe an extra snack, or maybe topping up your snacks to something that you wouldn't have during the week. It could be like a bit of evening snack that you might avoid for some other days when you're trying to control calories a bit. But you could even have an evening snack with bagel and meat and relish, or a bit of cereal or something in the evening time. And you could just be adding another scoop of oats or an extra slice of bread, a glass of orange juice with your breakfast, a bit extra fruit and a kind of a fruit bowl or something, and then maybe a scoop of rice, a potato, something extra, a bit of pasta, maybe a triple decker sandwich instead of a normal sandwich, like something as simple as that. Get you extra carbs for lunchtime, same with dinner, and then just make sure you have a conscious kind of extra bit of food compared to what you would on a normal Friday or Saturday for some, and then filter into your game day, where you want to keep it very simple. A lot of your fueling should be done before that day anyway, because players, especially as the stakes go up, players get more nervous and they eat less, and some players eat more, some players eat less, and you have to deal with that individually, how much they fuel on the day before or even 2 days before, so that they can be really comfortable on the day of it and not have to think about their fueling. But again, it's a very simple approach, carbs and protein, trying to keep the fats a bit lower, because the carbs are the energy source, and fats slow down the uptake of carbs as well, and well, they slow down digestion. So like, you don't want to have too much high fat meals going into especially the pre meal, but maybe for that day you want to keep it a small bit lower in fats as well.
I would say recovery then, what would be the general guidance around that with your players?
The same thing, but just put in a way that, like, the guidelines are the 3 hours of recovery with repair, refuel, rehydrate. So repair your muscle with protein, refuel your muscles with carbohydrate and your energy levels, and rehydrate with fluid, milk, water, cordial, sports drinks, whatever you need in terms of carbohydrate, and a mixture of those milk has electrolytes in there, helps you retain the fluid, and electrolyte drinks do the same thing. So that's the kind of general approach. And you talk about kind of replenishing, if you want to add another one, just with nutrient dense foods, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, kind of a thing. But if you're following the guidelines that you should be following, and nutrient density around match day and all that, you're going to pick up that kind of recovery. But you'll see that meals are purposely kind of higher in carbs, and sometimes it's just things that you wouldn't perceive to be healthy, but they're easy to eat and easy to get food in. There is a dessert, but people think it's wrong, but dessert means that you're eating more, and if it's easy to digest, the players will eat it, then what's wrong with it? Especially because it's your highest calorie output that people think you can't have. It's wrong to have a dessert, but that's the day you need to get the fuel in.
I suppose it's about, like, I suppose watching what you eat and when you eat is probably the most important thing. And I suppose leading on to that, then I suppose not so much we say with the professionally scene, that wouldn't be an issue there. Well, it shouldn't be an issue there, but we'll say with the amateur scene and the semi professional scene, lads like to have, and especially in Ireland, lads and even girls like to have the odd few points. What would be your opinion around that? Have you an opinion on, we say, drinking bans, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I suppose, like, coming from a rugby background mainly, I don't like the idea of drinking bans, but I personally would have stopped drinking myself. I don't, there was never a ban, but you deal with your own individual circumstances, so I think if you give that trust to players, they'll give it back to you in terms of behaving properly. But if you start putting bans on things, all of a sudden there's a mental kind of there's a mad approach to it. But, like, I understand with Cork Con, there's often the lads don't drink on the way home tonight, we have a short turnaround, and they could be drinking anyway. You're not they're very good at deciding it, so you let them off and hope that their judgment is right. But if their judgment is off, then they're not going to be in the right place anyway, and none of us are at anything. So, like, I'm not saying don't have a drinking ban. I mean, it's a different approach when championship is only, traditionally these things came because championship was knockout, and it was you train all year, championship you knocked out, you're fucked. So so that's probably where it came from. But I think, like, there should be an understanding and an education around the fact that alcohol is going to impair your performance leading up to this. Not just it's not just the night before the game, obviously, but it's your recovery from the previous performance and warm-up games and training sessions. But again, it depends on, is a guy going to a local pub to unwind with a couple of friends and 4 to 6 pints, or is he going out to town, not getting home till 3 o'clock in the morning, having a very poor sleep, not getting enough to recover the next day, also drinking 10 to 12 pints on top of it, and probably strolling into a chipper on the way home, getting up and having a proper breakfast, and just kind of lying on the couch until he has to go back to training sometime on Monday or Tuesday. That's a very different approach. So there's obviously a spectrum there, and you don't want to go too high up in one. But what's the mental approach? What's the relaxation of having a couple of pints, getting away from the kind of reality, the game? Does that stand for a guy? People are different. I didn't drink much when I played. It was my approach. It was very boring for some people, but that was my approach, and I didn't have anything that I could mentally go, I might have played better if I'd not gone out, or if I did this or did that. But there are times when something is on that's more important than sport. Sometimes, if someone close to you is married, if there's a family event, if there's something going on, you can balance it. You can definitely balance it. But alcohol at a higher level definitely impairs sporting performance and recovery. So there's no getting away from that either.
Perfect. I suppose players would, they would probably approach you the odd time if like you're saying, if there's an event coming up or whatever the case may be. But I suppose just on your, say during match days, would you have much of a role, with the team, or is it all kind of done prior and post match?
I suppose I should be prepared for it by that stage, have the meals ready to go, like the orders put in and that kind of stuff. And it's like I like being there on match days because you still get the nervous question of, when do I take my caffeine? When do I take my caffeine? Do I take it now? What about now? And it's like, just there to support guys, but I should be hiding. Like, I shouldn't be in the foreground. If I'm there doing team talks, I'm in trouble. So it's definitely just to be there to support guys. But I mean, if I wasn't there, thinking the ship's not going to fall apart, like, is it? So I like going at the start because you have to find out what the culture is, who's taking what, who's drinking what and eating what. are they not eating at all? Is their last 10 minutes suffering because they haven't had any carbohydrate at halftime or before the match? And trying to pick up these little things by being a fly on the wall and not kind of getting in the way. I'm supposed to be facilitating their energy levels, which facilitates their performance, and I don't need to be in the foreground whatsoever. So it's very much kind of, it feels a bit blank, really. You're hanging around and trying to pick up the odd job, like, but you
Look
might be
busy.
needed. Yeah, exactly. But you might be needed. You're needed, and you have to be ready for it in that kind of a sense. But and then afterwards, you get into recovery mode and trying to spread the right messages and have the right things in the dressing room for them. Make sure they're getting a protein source, and managing the kind of the schedule and where they're eating and all that kind of stuff. That's important, because what if they're having a long conversation in the dressing room and they decided that they're going to wait till they get down the road to have some food as well? So what you have in the dressing room to kind of facilitate that and allow them to recover while allowing the manager to have the wants or needs with the players, you know. So it's trying to understand that before the fact and having things in place so that all these things run smoothly, because if they don't run smoothly and if the recovery drink isn't there, all about it, they're sweating and they're trying to figure something out. So it's better being prepared and having nothing to do on match day than to be running around frantically and trying to fix things as well.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, I suppose even like that's actually a very good point. Just having, you know, those little things in place for after the game to, you know, to start that recovery for the players. I suppose just what advice would you be giving your own players now at the moment, or even general club players out there that look, a lot of them might be working from home, a lot of them could be just sitting down all day on the computer. What kind of, I suppose, look, as humans, we're used to having breakfast, maybe lunch and dinner. I suppose those gaps in between can be the biggest problem.
Yeah.
What kind of snacks would you have or what kind of snacks would you advise or encourage people to have?
I think for like the first thing is that you have to have a routine. I think routine is good for us, and that's why we have a breakfast, lunch, dinner. Like as human beings, we wake up when it's bright. You know, we go to sleep when it's dark, and you eat a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can argue the breakfast one is probably not for now, but the main thing is to have your routine. And if your routine has changed, I think the big thing is to find it and figure out what works for you again. You know, because not knowing is the elusive thing. You don't know what you're doing. You're going to make poor choices. So figuring out when you eat and when you're hungry and listening to hunger cues, that's a big thing. And then I think with some people, they try to avoid these snacks, like, and you just can't avoid snacking when you're hungry. Natural
Yeah.
thing, like, because you're hungry for a good reason. So having something positive on hand that you can have without feeling guilty over it, or, you know, making sure that you can make the right choices at those times, and make some snacks, or have, you know, Greek yogurt with granola and berries in the fridge, or like, I mean, Daniel Davies probably leading the way in terms of healthy snacks with all the stuff he's got in his book and on his website and stuff. So, um, and like we all have different snack options that we like to have, but if you need to jazz it up and make something pretty nice like that so you have it, then that's fair enough. But I end up probably eating most of them in the same day. I've got chocolate protein flapjacks in the fridge there now, and I had 3 of them today, which I was trying not to. But that can happen as well. If you're too prepared, you can end up eating too many of them. So the biggest thing is making sure you have the right foods in the house, and when you're going for a snack, then you make better choices. Like, because that poor choice could lead to another poor choice down the line, because you're not you're not satiated, you're not satisfied, and you're still hungry. Like, you know, you're going to go for something else if you are.
Yeah, it's just, again, I suppose there's a general trend of what you're saying. It's about being
I need a
prepared
bit of
and
light here. Is that my fault?
no, it's
Let me get
grand.
a bit of light.
Um,
We're
it
fixed.
just I suppose again it's just about being prepared all the time, isn't it?
Yeah, I think preparation is huge. But yeah, like, I mean, you can try different routines and stuff, but, like, you know, you have to figure out what suits you as well. But, like, most people, I don't know many people that have breakfast, lunch, and dinner and actually stick to that. You know, some people like
Yeah.
big meals, but even I do. Like, I'll get clients to fill out a questionnaire, and, like, they fill it out and they'll tell me what their breakfast, lunch, and dinner is, and they might say one snack, and then I follow up and chat to them, and they kind of say, oh, and I'd have this, oh, and I'd have that, and this comes at that time, and oh, I'd have a protein shake at this time, and that's a part of a snack, you know. So you're not having a breakfast, lunch, and dinner for most people. Anyway, there are other people who might have a big meal and are satisfied with it, but most people that I know don't have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I certainly don't have about 3 breakfasts, so definitely be prepared.
Perfect. And I suppose just on something you touched on there a few minutes ago is what would be your feeling on intermittent fasting, or, you know, like, not, yeah, intermittent fasting, is that what it's called?
Yeah, intermittent
Yeah.
fasting.
I know
I
I caught you on the hop there now, but
like I'm a fan of breakfast. You know, I think from an athlete's point of view, I think you're trying to get 4 to 5 servings of protein in throughout the day. You're trying to spread that evenly throughout the day. If you're training, and like a lot of the athletes I deal with now are training in the evening time, you're still recovering in the morning. Are you taking away from your recovery if you don't have another protein serving at 8 o'clock when you get up? You're waiting till 11 o'clock. It's minimum, like it's a small point, but like once your total protein is looked after and your total calories are looked after, then that's the main thing. But there is we went from saying breakfast was the most important meal of the day to it doesn't really matter once you control your totals. But I think the context is very, very important. Like you can say that's fine. Goes to the gym 3 times a week. The 6 exercises, 3 by 12. They can get up off the bed if they want and leave. They don't have to be performing at their best. But if you're dealing with top end performance, I think it's probably a better idea to have a breakfast. But it's very person dependent. If someone doesn't like to eat in the morning time, they feel clearer mentally to get more jobs done. Why not let them do that if they can look after the rest of their day well? And again, they are training in evening time. So what's wrong with eating at 10 o'clock instead of 7 or 8 o'clock? Nothing at all. So it depends on the person and depends on who I'm dealing with, what their habits are. But if you're a morning person that eats breakfast, then eat breakfast. But I think it should be a routine, whatever you're doing. It shouldn't be a lazy way of saying I couldn't be bothered making something. Have a smoothie or have a piece of fruit with a glass of milk and get out the door. I don't think there's a good enough reason to not eat out of laziness. But if it's a planned approach, there's a time and a place.
perfect, perfect. That's definitely a good point. I suppose people who follow you, they would see that you do like making very attractive dishes. What would be your favorite dish?
I don't know what my favorite dish is, to be fair, but I think I like breakfast the most. You're probably the hungriest. You've gone the longest without food, and it's just attractive. If you've a bit of time, I like to, like recently now. I like there's nearly always eggs involved and bacon medallions. Recently, since Chloe's been working at home full time, the bacon medallions most days. We make a proper breakfast, and I'm enjoying sneaking potatoes into my breakfast. It's way better crack. Having more potatoes in breakfast is always good. So roast up some potatoes, a kind of a potato hash or a breakfast hash with baked eggs in there. I think and then I think those breakfasts are nice because you can actually lash a load of different things in there. It's kind of like I'm actually kind of enjoying because I'm learning a lot more as well about my own cooking and how you can play with flavors and what you can actually dump into things. Sometimes people say just play around and throw it in. You're like, no, give me a recipe. You need to follow it. But then the more you do it, the more you realize you can just pluck this and throw that in, and you get different flavors and stuff. So with those kind of breakfasts where you're kind of throwing it all into one pan or one pot, you can put in whatever veg you want or whatever spices you want or flavors. And I think it's kind of an enjoyable way to start your day as well.
Perfect, perfect. And I suppose over your career, I suppose always in rugby, nutrition, the fact that it is a professional sport, nutrition was always probably important even in your earlier days. But we say in GA, have you seen a big change from when you started out? And I know you did say you played a bit of Gaelic football to now. Do you think players are much more, aware and conscious of their diets and nutrition?
I think like from the players up and back down again. I mean, I got employed on that's on a full time basis, but it's on a more full time basis than what the others were employed before me. So like I think from that point of view, even the organisation is taking it more seriously. But I don't know what's driving that. Is it the fact that they're listening to people who are telling them that it needs to be taken seriously or not? But players are definitely becoming more in tune with it, and they're asking more questions, and like people in general, regardless of sport, I think it's becoming very popular to be into nutrition and into the way you look and into the way you perform, even if it's only for yourself in the gym. So like I think the whole kind of the industry and the kind of the health approach, like it's all obviously kind of becoming more popular. But in the sport, I think they are becoming more aware, and they're more in tune with what's going on, how to fuel their own bodies, and the game is speeding up. It's balls in play for longer in every sport. So like I think if you're not taking it seriously, you're being left behind. Conditioning is becoming grueling, and you have to it's one thing fueling for the game that's there, and the demands of the game are a lot faster and for longer. But to be able to train at a level to get there, you need to be able to support that as well. So it's day in, day out kind of stuff, and it's the game is only the result of the everyday stuff. If you get me.
Perfect. Do you want to take that question there? Do you like sweet potatoes?
No, Pete McKay.
Actually, that was something I was going to ask you. Like, would you be more like you probably already answered it, but sweet potatoes and normal potatoes?
What's the
It'd
difference?
be normal potatoes, would you? Yeah. What is there much of a difference, or?
No, Pete's asking that because I used to have sweet potatoes twice a day, every day when I played. Every day. I thought there was something like nutritionally superior about sweet potatoes because they were this new thing that people are eating, but there's very little difference in terms of macronutrient profile. You could hardly split them. It's only a difference of there's obviously a difference in the color of them, which is their micronutrient profile. So I went mad on sweet potato, like, and even at times you'd nearly order sweet potato fries because you think they're better than normal potato fries, but they're not. They're both deep fried potatoes, you know. So I definitely went back to the humble white potato after having more than a kilo of sweet potato. I swear to God, 500 grams for lunch and dinner every day for about 3 years. So
Oh
I
man,
definitely love it.
you're
There's
you're you're, you're well sick of it.
yeah, nutrition kind of misconceptions from professional athletes. I think they know something before they get educated. You know, I definitely wrecked every nutritionist dietitian head that I ever had. So I learned the hard way.
Very interesting, very interesting. And I suppose just before we close it out there, obviously the concussion is very big in rugby. I know you're not playing anymore, but do you think that the education around it has improved a huge amount? And I suppose where do you think, where can you see things going in the future around concussion, and even actually in the GA world as well? Albeit it's very far behind, but I suppose again one of your points throughout this whole conversation was education. And I suppose
Yeah.
giving education to these athletes regardless of the sport.
Yeah, I think people think that concussion is a new thing because you only hear them now, but that's because people are only aware of what it is. I'd say you still have concussion and the person doesn't know what it is. But like obviously it's not as much a contact sport as rugby, but like you're climbing into the air and you're getting knocked. You're going to come down awkwardly some of the time. So like it was a thing that wasn't a concussion, it was a headache, like, you know. And
Yeah,
even rugby from my time underage to academy, I had a couple of concussions, like, and nothing too serious, thankfully. But I had one bad one, definitely, and I was out for about 5 weeks with it. And get a concussion for 5 weeks, how seriously you take your health. You know, it's people will tell you you've got one brain, and you go, yeah, yeah, grand, I'm a player, I need to play. But get a bad one and see how you feel about concussion because it'll change your mind completely. I had a headache for about 5 weeks. I couldn't cycle a bike.
jeez.
If I had an intense conversation, this would have like a conversation like this, looking at a phone would have given me a headache. You know, so um, I think it's not until you get something like that you take concussion more seriously. But the education around it is better. You know, we're doing our SCAT tests to make sure that you're at a good baseline and that you're passing your tests and all that. You know, so it is better. But um, I think as well from a coaching point of view, people kind of say concussion wasn't a thing when I was younger. Get up and play, and that's a
Yeah,
good approach. No, I'm not saying that anyone in Cork is doing that at the moment, but you know that is a definite approach from older lads that are coaching. It's like, oh, we would have played on with that, but you have to kind of stamp that out because that's the very thing that stops players from speaking up about a concussion. And you know, if you have one and you get another one, they linger. You know, I nearly became grateful that I retired with a hamstring injury because you get a pain in the hamstring, nothing is going to happen. You like if you get a pain in your head, you don't know what's going on. You know, and
yeah.
if you got a cough or a cold and you get a headache from it, is that your concussion retirement kind of injury or the cough? You know, I like not to scaremonger it, but that would kind of I think overthink that definitely. Some people might not overthink. I would overthink that. So like I remember like my mother was telling me when I was retiring, at least it's not her neck, and I was like, is she acting for real? My but like she had such a good call. It wasn't my neck and it wasn't concussion in my head. You know, like it's just such a different game. Like so. Um, I don't know where it's going to go. I think there'll be more concussions being diagnosed, but I don't think there's more concussions in the game. If you get me,
Yeah,
there might be, but I don't think it's at the same ratio as what we think. Like, you know, they were definitely there all the time, but people just didn't know what they were, and having to take like I think you take these kind of models around concussion and stuff before like at the start of every season. The thing that people don't want to do, obviously, like you just want to get out to pre-season, get rid of the nerves of having to do all that running, the rest of it, but it is important, and the more these things can be spread around and to different sports and all that through the kind of player associations as well. I think they're important make sure that the education is being done as well in every environment. Like, it is definitely important. And some people will be thinking that's a bit dramatic, but like, I'm telling you, get a concussion, change your mind about it completely.
Yeah, definitely. As you said there, you only have one brain, and if you alter that, you're completely changing your life. And the scary thing is you don't know until down the line. A lot of the times the effects. Look, Johnny, thanks very much for taking the time out. I know we're kind of went over the
Yeah,
time
right.
limit, but anyway, I appreciate it.
No
And
bad.
look, best luck going forward, and hopefully you'll be back on the pitch soon with the lads, and you'll be
Yeah.
able to work with them.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thanks a million, Johnny. Take it easy.